Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Misha Sauceda Halliday, and I'm here with Judy Pitkofsky. Today we have a wonderful episode for you. We've been working on our adult cooking series with members of our congregation. And today we're going to learn how to make chopped liver with Judy Pitkofsky. But right now, we're going to just talk with Judy a little bit about her life and hear some of the stories that she has to tell. Afterwards, we'll watch the video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. We have some time for you to get in here and grill her about her chopped liver. So right now, let me introduce you to Judy Pitkofsky.
Hello.
Judy and I have been talking quite a lot. I've asked her innumerable questions, and let me start here. So Judy, the first thing I want to do is say, how old are you?
I am 93. Come December, I will be 94.
94, oh my goodness.
It's just a number.
It's just a number. So Judy, tell me, where exactly were you born? What did you do there? Did you have any siblings? Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, very briefly, because 93 years, you accumulate a lot of stories. But I was born in Chicago. I was the first child from my mother and father, and but I was followed by 4 siblings. I had two brothers and 2 sisters. Unfortunately, I've lost our middle sister, and they were in order to the youngest. The one closest to me would be Lionel, and then there was Jeanette, we lost, and then there's George, and my youngest sister, Sarah, who lives in New Jersey. And we were not all born in Chicago, just the first 3 of us, because we went out to Wyoming, and we lived in Wyoming, and we lived in Montana, and in 1936 we traveled, we were part of the Okies, only we were going south instead of west, and we went down to Houston, Texas. I lived there for 6 years before my father and mother and others of us came north again to get my father's business in Waukegan, Illinois. And Waukegan was our family home of 1960. And as far as myself, I graduated high school. I moved to 1999. And
So, hold on just a moment. We spent so much time getting ready for this interview, and of course the sound went out just for a second, so hang tight. We're right here. Of course, I'll talk to my technical director. Jimmy, are we ready to go? Okay, we're ready to go. So do you want to finish up on?
Okay, so as far as my own life, in 1950, I married my college sweetheart, Bob Stoltz, and the following year in September, we had a little girl, but at the end of 1950, he was killed in an auto accident. I lived with his parents for about 18 months and worked. My mother-in-law took care of Susie, and then eventually I went back to Waukegan, Illinois, and lived with my parents until I met Hi.
Okay, so let me stop you there. When you first told me about his name, I wasn't sure who or what you were talking about, because you referred to him as Hi?
Hi.
Hi or Hi?
Well, his Hebrew name is Chaim. In English is Hyman, and I called him H. Actually, I would call him Hi only when I needed to get his attention. Other than that, he was Honey.
Well, that's a good name, and I know there were a number of us that had the same thing with our husbands. Tell me, where did you meet Hi? I thought this was a fascinating story.
Oh, it was kind of funny. Um, I was the president of a group called the YPL, which was set up by United Synagogue for young unmarried. And in order to get enough men, we put up a flyer in the Jewish chapel at the Great Lakes Naval Training Center. Well, Hi and some of his other buddies came to the party, which happened to be a beach party just north of Waukegan on the shores of Lake Michigan. I met him. I thought he was a real sweet young man. At that point, I was 26. He looked to be about 18. So we chatted a bit, and that was the end of that. The following Friday, I was helping the ladies of the Jewish Welfare Board serve the oneg for the servicemen who were attending Friday night services. Well, the ladies, they didn't serve cookies and stuff. They served corned beef sandwiches. And as I told Bisha, it was really funny. We had a lot of instant Jews that night because our Jewish boys would invite their buddies from the barracks, and we had a lot of guys there. Well, it turned out that I was in the Air Force, taking his training as a dental hygienist there on the base. And so he saw me, and we started talking again. And I guess he had some interest. And then he saw a ring on my finger, a wedding ring. Well, it turned out that this was the mid-1950s, and a woman didn't go out with her child unless she had a wedding band on. And so I had gone shopping with Susie, and I'd put the band on my finger, and I forgot to take it off. Well, I didn't think anything of it, but he thought, oh gosh, she's married. Then he gets a card in the mail, because by that time the organization had his address, telling about our next event. And he said, I've got to find out about this. So he invites me to go to lunch at a cafeteria on the base, which wasn't far from my office. I went over there, and we chatted, and we talked about our families, and I told him about myself and my siblings, and why I had a wedding band on. And then he talked about his siblings. He had 5. I came from a family of, there were 6 in all in his family, children, and there were 5 in ours. Anyway, he showed me a picture of his youngest brother, and I said, well, how old is he? And he said, oh, 21, 22. I thought, well, how old are you? He said, 27. And he was a marked man from that point on, because he was.
I thought that was such a cute story.
So anyway, we did start dating. Initially, he had to grow on me, and he definitely did. And by November, we were engaged, and we were married the following March of 1955. We were married at the Jewish chapel at Great Lakes by Rabbi Philip Lippis. And Rabbi Philip Lippis, for those of you who have been members for a while, was one of the best friends of Rabbi Perlman, who was the father of Josh Perlman. And it turned out that Rabbi Lippis was a Jewish chaplain on Iwo Jima, and Cantor Perlman was a Marine. But they met, became fast friends. The two families remained in touch for the rest of their lives.
So I'm going to fast forward. It's interesting to me that you ended up here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So tell me how you arrived here. At the time, if I'm correct, you were living in Milwaukee.
That's right.
You were living in Milwaukee. There's a large Jewish population
Yes.
there, so that's why you chose that. But then you ended up here. That's quite a jump there.
Well, when Hy and I got close to retirement, it was very difficult for him to take the cold winters. He had had heart problems. And our youngest son was working as a nurse at Memorial General in Las Cruces. Excuse me. So we went down there to visit him in May of 1983. And when I found myself sitting in shirt sleeves in the sun, reading a book, enjoying the beautiful air. I said, I can handle this. And of course, I felt the same way. We came back every year after that and toured a little bit of New Mexico, and then in addition to visiting Maury, and we said, this is for us. Our first visit to Albuquerque was 1984, and we came to Bnai Israel, and we visited here, meeting, and for old timers, they'll remember, Stephanie Spinks when she was secretary, and at the same time, meeting Lois Schwartz. I had known Lois since she was 12 and a half. She was from Waukegan. She was one of my brother's contemporaries, my younger brother. And it just turned out she had to take a telephone call in the office. When she got off, she said, "You're from Milwaukee?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I was born in Milwaukee, but I was raised in Waukegan." I said, "You were? What was your name?" She said, "I was Lois Smith." I said, "I'm Judy Salzberg." Well, Lois, Judy, and that was that. So I knew, as I said, I've known Lois for a long time. So it was in 1994 that January 1994, that we joined Bnai Israel, and I've loved every moment of it.
So you've been in Albuquerque or you've been here at Congregation Bnai Israel. How long now?
Well, 94, it'd be 27 years in January. No, 28 years in January.
Ladies and gentlemen, okay, here's the first thing that amazes me, is I'm 70 years old, and I can't remember the kinds of dates that Judy does. So let me ask this, Judy, I'm tossing vitamins, and I'm walking and running every day. What is your secret? You're 93 years old, and I'm just amazed at this, Tell me what you do.
I can only be me, but there's something within me that wants to be a part of the community. I feel that for all seniors, the longer they can be in contact and be a part of their community, the better. Yes, I have had several positions in sisterhood. Currently, I take care of the books for the gift shop. I send out cards to people in the congregation who are ill from the congregation. I also send out Salico cards, and I take care of the books in the gift shop. None of that requires any real physical effort. It does keep the brain busy, but more than that, it makes me feel that I am a part of something, and that's what's so important for me.
So you feel that being part of a community is really part of keeping you young at heart?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's, I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have those little tasks to do. It's great, it's great. And I appreciate the congregation so much because they have truly become my family here in Albuquerque, in that I don't have any other relatives living in the state.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to talk about the fact that I was one of the original people who had been at a Seder where Judy was at, and she had brought her famous chopped liver. You will see in the video how she talks about this famous chopped liver. And with that, we're going to watch the video that Jimmy Tran and I made sometime, when was that?
Was it July?
Maybe July, yeah. We made this video in July. We hope you enjoy it, and we're going to cut away now to it.
Hi, I'm Judy Pitkofsky. I've been a member of Congregation Bnai Israel for over 24 years, and I've certainly enjoyed just being a part of the whole thing. I never thought that I would be on video because of it. I have been active in sisterhood. You may have seen me in the gift shop. I've been the publicity chairman and I've enjoyed that a lot. But maybe several years ago, I brought some chopped liver over to my friend Lynn Freedman's house for Passover Seder. Well, people seem to like it again. I did it the following year. And then all of a sudden I get called to ask me if I would show everyone how to make my chopped liver. To tell you the truth, my chopped liver is not that different from anyone else's. The ingredients are really quite simple. All that involved is the chicken liver, salt, pepper, olive oil, onions, and hard-boiled eggs. That's about it. And it's the way things go together that give it the taste, and certainly my enthusiasm, because there's nothing that I enjoy more than some chopped liver on a nice crisp matzah. The first thing is the chicken livers. And what I do first is to carefully wash them in cold running water. And one is just to get rid of the debris. Sometimes there's bits of fat that hang on. I'll take those off. But most important of all, and I will show you that in a few minutes, is that I must remove the bile sac. You'll find it's a dark little sac, and it's not on all of the livers, but if it breaks, it will ruin the liver. If it were to be cooked inside, everything would be bitter. You don't want to get that in there. And some of the liver has it, most of it does not. And so what I've done, as I said, is I have washed all these livers carefully in cold running water. Of course, the salt and pepper, I can't tell you how much, because as I'm making it, I'm going to be tasting it. And that's the only way I can season. Then we have olive oil. Why olive oil? Most of the Jewish recipe books that I've looked at for chopped liver recipes will call for schmaltz. Schmaltz, as you know, is rendered chicken fat. It's delicious. I can't think of anything better than a dab of schmaltz on a piece of rye bread and a little bit of salt. It's wonderful, but it is also extremely unhealthy. What I use is what they call, this is extra light flavor or light olive oil. And one, even I guess for Passover it could be used because there's certainly no chametz in it, and it is kosher. This has a hexer on it. And unlike extra virgin olive oil, it has no flavor. What it adds is some of the moistening, plus the fact that you put olive oil in the refrigerator, as you will the chicken liver, to keep its shape, and also just to protect it. It will harden. It will harden just as butter would harden in the refrigerator, or many other fats. So this not only acts as furnishing moisture, but also gives it body. And then we have onions. I have about a little over 2 pounds of onions. These are fair size. They happen to be Vidalia. I prefer the sweet onion. One, you're not going to cry when you cut it. And two, it isn't an overwhelming onion flavor. It doesn't overwhelm the liver. So I will be showing you how I cut those. And I cut them in a certain way because they're easier to feed into my food grinder. The next thing I have here is hard-boiled eggs. And I have, since I said 2.5 pounds, and I usually use 2 eggs per pound, I've got 5 eggs here. So that's the ingredients. Okay, now is the time that we want to do the hard-boiled eggs. And my friend Lynn Freedman is going to help me. What I do is, as far as hard cooking an egg, and I found that has worked quite well, is that I put them in cold water, put them on the stove, bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer. Because of our high altitude, the temperature of the water is less than boiling, so I cook them for 20 minutes. After that, I'll pour off the hot water. I put cold water in, but in addition to the cold water, I put in a tray of ice cubes. That will bring down the temperature faster and make it a lot easier to peel. So Lynn, would you mind putting these on the stove for me?
All right.
And so in about 20 minutes, they'll be all done. I told you about you checking the livers for the bile sac. And the bile sac is this little dark thing right here that's completely unlike the liver. And what I'm going to do right now is to sit down and take it out very, very carefully so that I don't break it. Because I can tell you it would ruin this particular liver. And if I didn't do it, it would break during cooking. And you would have an awful, awful tasting mess on your hands. So as you can see, I'm carefully holding it, not pressing it too hard because they're delicate. Keep in mind, this is actually the gallbladder of the chicken. We have something similar to this in our own bodies. So there you go, I've got it out. This is what it looks like. It's just a little black sac, but be sure and check that over if you're making these livers. So that is how you take care of the bile sac. Okay, I'm just going to be cutting up the onion, and I slice it in a way that it can be split into the grinder or the meat grinder easier. This one has a little off center on its center, so got to cut a little more. And as you know, it just peels off, and there's nothing to that. So we're taking the hard peel off the onion. Okay, that's this way. The reason I wanted to show you this is that if you cut it this way, I'm going to cut it in half, and then each half I'm going to cut into pieces like this, like triangles. I find this is the easiest shape to feed into the meat grinder, which I'll do once they're cooked. So that's cutting up the onion. All right, it's all done, and now we're ready to put it in the frying pan. Okay, now we're going to fry or saute the onions, and you have watched me cut them up. Now I'm going to turn on the stove to sort of a medium heat, and I'm going to I put in about 1/4 cup of olive oil for every pound of liver. This will be a little bit more, because you're going to use this as a moistening agent when you're grinding the livers. So we'll rotate the pan, make sure all the sides are covered, and then just put your onions into the pan. Squish them around so that they're all exposed to the hot pan. And once they're limp, then they're ready to be put in as a part of the chopped liver. As far as my cooking experience, it started when I was a very, very young kid. We were living in Houston, Texas. My dad worked in a dry goods store. I had 2 younger siblings. Well, we were about to have another sibling, the 4th child. Mother was in the hospital having George, and at that time they kept women in for 10 days, because I'm talking 1939. Dad had to work. There was no sick leave, family leave, or anything in those days. He was just grateful to have a job. We're still talking Depression. So Dad, as I said, was working, but he had rented another house with another bedroom because the family was growing. So he went to work, and I not only took care of my 2 younger siblings, but I also had to cook and feed them and take care of them, whatever those 2 required. My brother was about 6 years, no, my brother was about 2.5 years younger than I was, and my sister was around 6 years younger than I. And as I said, I was 11.5. But what I was also doing when I wasn't taking care of the kids was packing up to move to the next house. In other words, helping my dad. I didn't know that little kids didn't have to work. I worked. But in the process, this, I think, is what started my love of cooking. And I continued that through high school. I took home ec. I loved my home ec teacher who taught me things about cooking so much that when I decided when I was making my plans for college, I decided I wanted to be a hospital dietitian. And I was able to get a scholarship at the home ec school at the University of Illinois. I was living in Waukegan at the time. So, keep up with these onions. So I went to the homemade school, and I had 2.5 years towards a dietetics degree. And then I took organic chemistry. Organic chemistry took me, and I switched majors, and I got my degree in journalism. But I never lost my love of food and cooking and nutrition. And it's just played out over the years. My mom was a good, what I'd call an American cook, just everyday thing. She did make a terrific chicken soup, but as far as the traditional Jewish dishes, some I've gotten from cookbooks, others I learned from my father's sisters, maybe rest in peace, my Aunt Ethel and my Aunt Bessie. Aunt Ethel taught me how to make gefilte fish. And when I lived in Milwaukee and Waukegan, it was right on Lake Michigan, you could get fabulous fish for gefilte fish. So I used to make it, and it was funny. My dad loved the fish, and every time he took a bite of it, he would say, "Judy, it's good, but it needs a little more salt." And I think that's where I got my taste for salt from my father, because he liked it just a little bit more salt. But nevertheless, I enjoy doing things like that. I've learned to make krugels. As a matter of fact, I've gone to break the fast meals at friends' home, and I've made what I call Susie's kugel. Susie's kugel is a very elaborate one. It has cream cheese and sour cream. It doesn't have cottage cheese. So, and then it has a crust of buttered cornflake crumbs sprinkled with cinnamon sugar. So I love to make luncheon kugels. I enjoy making chicken soup. I even enjoy making matzo balls. I love our traditional foods, and I encourage everyone. I'm not going to say ladies or girls, no, everyone, because I can tell you this, both of my sons learned how to cook, and they're fantastic cooks. They really are. So I'm very proud of them. But I never discouraged. My kids wanted to help in the kitchen. They were most welcome. I never shooed them out. And as a result, they had prepared many tasty meals. So that's about all until I can get these onions done. They're getting there, kids. Back in the olden days, when our bubbies made chopped liver, they would have to use a wooden chopping bowl and a knife that is sort of round on the bottom, and they chopped, and they chopped, and they chopped, and they chopped, and they have to chop up everything by hand. However, I have this handy dandy little thing called an Oster Kitchen Center, and I bought it in 1979 when we koshered our kitchen for Pesach that year. And it has this wonderful thing. It's a meat grinder. So after they used the knives, they went to the manual meat grinder of going around like this. All I have to do is just insert it like so, screw it in tight, and it is good to go. Now I can start making chopped liver. So first I have the bowl, which fits right under there, and then I will get the liver, which has been cooked, and see, this thing's a little chippy, isn't it? That's okay. And the eggs and the onions, and I will be putting those in alternately. Okay, let's start. Much easier than using a chopping knife. I'm going to put in the hard-boiled egg. And I'm going to put in some of the onion. I think you can see from the shape of this why I said that this, by cutting it sideways that way, otherwise you'd have a bunch of little pieces flying all over the place. Okay, now I need Lynn's gonna get it for me, a small piece of matzah. And I use that to just clear out the grinder, because it's all been ground now. We have that. Just put it down there and you'll see it. When it starts to come out, I know that everything's out of there. There, it's all chopped. Now everything is all chopped up. And I'm checking the texture of it. I have added any olive oil that was in the pan. There was probably a couple tablespoons full. It still seems a little bit too thick. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of olive oil in there. Just a bit. It should be like a very heavy muffin or bread consistency when you get through with it. Now it's time to start seasoning. That is strictly up to you. I'm putting in some pepper and very carefully adding salt. Right now I'm just going to put in a couple of pinches of salt. Of course there's no salt in there right now, so it will need it. When I get through doing this, I'm going to taste it, but I'm going to mix it well first. And it's taking shape nicely and blending together the onions, the eggs, and the liver.
Are you ready for the chili powder?
Green or red?
Your preference.
I'll have green, but I think it'll look really, really weird. Green livers.
All right, we'll pass.
Okay, I'm gonna take a little sample of it right now. I'm there. And now I will plate it. Lynn, do you happen to have a plate I can put this on?
Yes.
You want to try, Jimmy? My fingers are clean. Okay. As I said, you can put this into a mold. If you have a ring mold, that's nice. Otherwise, you can just turn it out as I'm doing right now. And then, give you this one. And then just shape it with your hands. Make it into a loaf if you want. And then we'll decorate it with some sprigs of parsley.
Had you done?
No, it's nice garnish.
Normally I take them right off
3
the
minutes
stove.
left.
Some on the other side.
It looks fine.
Stick it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, and you have kahak liver or chicken liver Judy style. This is what it looks like, folks. there's chopped liver. It's wonderful for an appetizer. And I wish you lots of luck in making your first plate of this chopped liver. And if you have any questions, I'm in the blue book. So take care. Bye-bye. That's funny.
Excuse me. So that's it. Does anybody have any questions out there?
Turn on your audio.
Turn on your audio. We would love to hear from you. Raise your hand. Lynn, are you there? You were made famous
Yes,
too.
I'm here.
Do you have anything to say about this?
Why should I have shared it?
I want everybody to know, out of this whole batch of chopped liver, Judy took home 1/3 of the liver. Lynn took home 2/3 of the liver, and Jimmy and I got a small piece of matzah with 1 teaspoon of chopped liver. So Jimmy and I kind of looked at each other and said, what are we, chopped liver? So that being said, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you've enjoyed this production. We've certainly enjoyed making it, and we will see you again at one of our next episodes. Judy, it was great to talk with you.
Thank you. I enjoyed this, and I'll repeat it again. My telephone number is in the blue book.
We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was fun.
So Judy, what do you think?
I think it's great. How do you get to it when you don't have the link?
So Nina says,